Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
As the season continues to wind down, we continue our tour across the world of some of the greatest racetracks in this land. And now today we land on a new one, a tight, twisty circuit in the middle of England, and Oulton Park, the destination for our race today. Hello everyone, my name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth by David Whitehouse and Paul Walsh, with Jamie Fluke, our director and producer behind the scenes. And David, we've gone from some very wide open Formula One style tracks to a tight, twisty club circuit like this. This is really going to challenge the drivers today.
Yeah, good evening everybody. This is a challenge and a half for the drivers. I literally live about an hour away from this circuit, and on the game it's probably tighter than it is in real life, so it's actually going to give people such a challenge. Elevation change, blind corners, and all this traffic as well. We have, I think it's 35 cars on the grid today, so there is going to be traffic problems for the cars to negotiate, and as you can see, they're already starting their qualifying session.
They are indeed out in qualifying, and with such a tricky track to overtake around here, Paul, I have got to think that this qualifying session is of the most paramount of importance.
Most definitely. It is the case around here. Overtaking is at a premium. You have to have a major pace advantage to be able to get alongside and go for the move. And whilst overtaking is possible, you've got to be brave on the brakes. Indeed, we saw that in the real world with the British GT Championship only weeks ago. And now here today, we'll see it on the circuit as visualised in iRacing, and what is going to be a cracking race around here.
Indeed, and as always, it is open qualifying right now, so drivers trying to space themselves out a little bit. The draft not going to be nearly as significant as we've seen it in other places. And as always, we have our three classes of drivers all competing against one another, the Pro-Ams, and the Ams. Currently watching Jensen Andresson's working his way around right now in that Lamborghini. You know, it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag here. I think we've seen some tracks that have favored that Lamborghini. We've seen some tracks that have favored the BMW. I've got to think that this may be a little bit of Audi territory here today, David.
Yeah, certainly the Audi, and I expect to see the Porsche, especially of Lucas Lang up there in the battle, and possibly Leah Jordet, but I don't think he's made the grid today, so it will be Lucas Lang flying the flag for Porsche. just in Colin Sampson's up there as well. So it'll be quite interesting to see whether that Porsche can really just sort of jump up there and give Lucas Lang that opportunity to really go for victory, which he's just missed out on a little bit this season.
He has indeed, and that actually will bring us to our championship standings. There you can see it on your screen. Very close battles there in that pro category as we close down in the end of Season 3. As we said, 3 different categories here, the Pro-Am, and the Am. So there are your Pro standings right now. Let's bring you over to the Pro-Am standings as well, to the surprise of nobody there. Very close as well. Stuart Wyness, all of those drivers doing their best to try to close down in. And then in the Am category, it has been a pretty solid performance here on the year by Tom Bingham, but some sad luck has taken him out a little bit. Still keeping things open with a few rounds left to go in this championship. And Paul, as close as these championships are, it's really got to raise the stakes on everybody here coming into Oulton Park.
Indeed, with only a limited number of rounds remain now, with this being round number 7, so 3 rounds to go. It is the case that every point is critical here, and it's at this juncture in championships where drivers are now really put to the test, whether they've had a strong start to the season or a good mid-season. Now the test is, can they keep up the performances or revive those performances and get that momentum as we move closer and closer to bringing the curtain down?
And that curtain will fall in just a few weeks' time. Remember, as we have the first times getting set down on the board, Thomas Cope up to the top of the timing pylons there right now. You can see Regenletter currently in the top of the Pro-Ams, and Tom Bingham doing a fantastic job to be able to put that McLaren up into P8 overall. That is your highest Am driver, and we've seen that a lot out of Bingham, really dicing it up with the Pro-Am drivers, really putting himself up forward this season.
Yeah, he's managed to really get that McLaren under him, which a lot of drivers can't do. The off-power oversteer could be a little bit tricky around here, actually, but he seems to be handling it pretty well. We do have to remember that we do have a number of drivers who won't be starting from the grid today. Christophe Herbinot, Stefan Anderson, Tom McKell, Jose Diaz, Colin Sansom, and our winner from last time out, Patrick Eimer, who after the race got us penalty for a rejoin he had in the race, so still claims a victory, but loses a number of points and has to start from pit lane this time round.
Indeed, and that's going to hurt him as we ride on board, though, with Tom Valentini. Paul, why don't you give us a drive-through of what it takes to get a good lap here at Oulton Park?
Indeed, thank you, DJ. So making his way out of Old Hall Corner, turn number 1. Valentini now making his way flat out through Denton's, breaking down into the Cascades here. Late apex and getting on that front to balance the rear as he comes charging out. Now making his way all the way up to Shell Oil's Corner, the hairpin. But before he does, he's got to head past Lakeside up towards Island Bend here. A brief lift off of the throttle, balance the car and get back on the throttle as soon as possible. Pull the car to the left. In fact, put in the middle of the road and aiming for apex here and coming through Shell Oil's Corner. And with the bank in here, the camber means he can be aggressive on the throttle of exit as he now charges up through the right and kink of 6, and up into Fulston chicane, turns 7 through to 9 here, breaking down, trail breaking in aggressively here through into 8, now accelerating out, gets it a little bit wrong there, Valentini, carrying too much momentum in, and in fact he has to back off there and bring our lap to an end, and that is how it's so close on the limit. You've got now every braking point, and Will Cope at the moment looking as though he's nailing it with that provisional pole lap.
Yes, he is. He's got about 0.3 of a second up on everybody else in the field. Lucas Lang, one of the drivers we were talking about earlier, only good enough for 5th place. And Thomas Cope sort of capitalizing on some of the practice times that we've seen him be able to put down. But that number 12 Porsche certainly bringing its way around. Looks like a little bit of a slow run there for him. Tom Bingham looking a little bit squirrely there, coming over Deer Leap. That McLaren, that off-throttle oversteer that you talked about earlier, David, almost coming back to bite him there.
Yeah, it's just, it's a shame Lucas Lang had to abandon that lap because he was, oh no, he's still on it. He was purple in the first set to personal best in the second, so it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. I don't think it's actually improved, it's actually his out lap. So yeah, he did cut to the pit quickly because he felt it wasn't good enough, which is kind of strange because he was well up on his previous time, so I don't know if there's a mistake in the final bit of a sector. And as you can see, we've got a few drivers on green sectors, but whether they can really improve the lap is the big question, as we see the Audi of Arthur Hooper Merle come across the line, and he will jump up the order now because he hasn't actually set a lap time yet, and he will move up the order. Oh no, it's not a time. It's not a. It must have been an outlap.
Must have been an outlap, or another thing that's fairly easy to pick up around here, an off-track. As in iRacing, if you pick up an off-track, if you get one of those dreaded 1Xs, that will completely invalidate your lap. Here comes Matthias Beer, though, across the line right now. That's not going to be an improvement there for Beer. He is going to stay back in 4th place. Looks like Matthew McBride coming down pit lane. Everybody else out here in the final minute and a half of qualifying, just trying to get those good times down.
Yeah, Jensen Adriansen is right in there on a good lap at the moment. There's a spin there. That looks like Freezer, the AM driver, who has spun there, so he'll jump to pits. Tom Cope is coming round. Can he improve his pole position time? Jensen Adriansen, as you can see at the bottom, only one yellow sector out of a 5 so far, so he's on a very good lap. Tom Cope crosses the line and does improve by 27 thousandths of a second, but can Adriansen do something about it?
Well, Adriansen has been very, very quick here on this lap. As you said, a lot of personal best sector times. Here he comes out of that final corner of Lodge and over Deer Leap. Let's see if he can do anything to close the gap down on Thomas Cope. And it doesn't look like he's going to be able to jump it there. He will stay put. And Paul, starting at the front row, still good for Adriansen, but I think he'd like to see that gap a little bit smaller between himself and Thomas Cope.
Indeed, it is an intimidation factor there. The fact that there's a 4/10 gap between the two of them. I mean, what must be going through his mind right now is, what on earth is Cope running inside that car in terms of the engine and whatnot? Of course, it'll be restricted, it's regulated, but it gets into your mind in terms of when the pole sitter has such an advantage in qualifying. Haven't been there personally myself. I'd say it's one of those things where he's got to just put it at rest and think, right, he's got a very hooked up car for qualifying. Can he match it in the race, however? And that's the pressure that Cope will have on him in return now, is all the eyes will be on him in terms of he's expected to just pull off into the distance if he's shown this pace. Could be a very different story come the race start.
And checkered flag is out for qualifying, so just waiting for the last couple of drivers to put down times right now. Christoph Regenvetter and Stuart Wyness currently your front row in that Pro-Am category. Tom Bingham just staying on top of those amateur standings by a massive margin. He has got 6-7 cars in between himself and Paul Collishaw, who is the next up in line. Here comes Cope. He is going to come down pit lane, satisfied with that 1:30 flat time that is his best. Only 25 drivers being able to set a time here, David, and that just goes to show you how tricky this track is.
Yeah, we just had one more time just popped in there. I'm not sure who it was who jumped up there, but we got Tom McKell starting near the back, James Hall, who we know has got pace, Christian Engelhardt, and then obviously Patrick Eimer, we know is going to start from pits. Kieran Smart hasn't got a time. Now, Kieran, we've seen him really, really quick, and he's going to have to really fight through this field.
Indeed, he is. A couple of drivers popping down pit lane there, including Roland Schartner. Now we jump back to Tom Valentini, seeing if he can get that Lamborghini up. He's currently 0.6 of a second down on the leader. He has been putting down some personal best times there. You can see it flashing across your screen, personal best sector times, as he comes now out of those final couple of corners over Deer Leap right now. Let's see if this is going to be an improvement for Valentini. He's going to cross over the line, and he's going to jump 2 positions up into P2. And with that, the flag flies for qualifying. We are ready to go racing here in Oulton Park. There is your starting order with Thomas Cope in pole position. Tom Valentini just able to grab that P2 at the line. Jensen Adriansen will line up behind them with Matthias Beer. Lucas Lang in that Porsche, definitely one to watch out for over the course of the race, with Matthew McBride in P6 and Tim Spesser in P7. Starting off then into the meat of the Pro-Am field, it's Christoph Regenwetter with Stuart Wyness and James Hall behind them. Roland Schartner there, Adam Gladden, Arthur Hoopke-Merle, and then David Gill. You can see that big gap between himself and Tom Bingham for that AM category. Rene Hugenhout will be 17th, followed by Andrew Broom, and then we get a few more AM drivers there. Paul Collinshaw and Frisna. Russell Fowler in the Pro-Ams will start off in 21st, and Andy Thompson will be 22nd. Stefan Anderson there in 23rd. Till Beam, a time that is way off there for him, all the way down in 24th. 25th, Alex Fields, Alan Mystic, Adam Morrison, Christoph Herbino will be starting from pit lane, as we talked about earlier. Tom McKell, Kieran Smart, Daniel Mercer, Marchand, another driver that's going to have to be a lot of work to do here today. Matt Sire, Patrick Eimer, Colin Sampson, and Christian Engelhardt rounding out your 35-car field. And Paul, 35 cars, we talked about it a little bit. We talked about the traffic that these drivers are going to have to deal with. It is going to be a real schmozzle, to use a term, I think, once the leaders catch some lap traffic.
Indeed, and it's going to be where that traffic falls. And you can imagine, you could be the leader and you have an advantage of 5 seconds, catch the traffic at the worst possible place, such as coming into the second chicane of Hislop's, and then you find that by the time you've navigated your way past that traffic, you've lost that advantage. It's gone down to 2 seconds. Meanwhile, the second place driver finds a way past them, say, in the final few corners, and they do not get impeded. And that's why sometimes it's the case you've got to catch traffic at the right point in the race, and luck's got to be on your side in that regard. And also the driver in front of you has got to be aware that you are trying to come through. But blue flags do help with that. Or so they hope.
Exactly, and those blue flags, more informational rather than mandatory. You're not required to necessarily get out of the way, but a lot of good gentlemanly drivers here in this series. We do make sure that they stay out of the way as Cope rolls off of the line right now. This whole field of 35 cars ready to go. And David, any quick predictions here before we get to that green flag? David maybe having some connection problems there as they come in right now, but here they come coming out of Druid's Corner, a potential overtaking opportunity there, as well as this quick little run down into Lodge. Being able to get a overtake done requires a lot of commitment. It requires a lot of tenacity to be able to get that move done, but as of right now, the man who doesn't have to worry about doing any overtaking, that is Thomas Cope. As he backs up the field here, the iRacing pace car pulling off pit lane. There it goes, all eyes turning to Barney the flag man, and there goes the green. We are racing at Oulton Park. It is a brilliant start for Thomas Cope. Adrianson's there in behind, trying to get a little bit of ground up in as they go through the meat of the field. First couple of rows, nice and easy through the first corner, avoiding any problems. Looks like everybody's playing relatively calm. A little bit of contact there in the background, but everybody on track as they get going, David.
No, we actually had, sorry to jump in, we had 2 cars shooting straight on at the bottom. We got a few McLaren off. Yeah, it looks like we've got absolute chaos at the bottom of the hill.
Well,
I absolutely jinxed it there. Yeah, no, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, it looks as though there, well, you both jinxed it, and we did see 2 cars come spearing off, and I think a couple other cars have just become entangled coming down through the drop into turn 3. As we've got well, that's Mercedes into the wall there coming out of turn number 4.
That was Alex Fields there as he is there, but we're going to focus back on the clean racing here up front. It continues to be Thomas Cope leading right now as he has Valentini and Adrianson's behind him. It is a 1, 2, 3 of Lamborghinis right now. Cope trying to stretch that advantage a little bit to the best of his abilities as they fly their way through Druids. Lots of drivers here looking like they're going to have to go back into pit lane. We may get some replays of that first lap incident earlier on. Not a lot of movers and shakers here in this pro category. It looks like everybody's remained the same, David.
Yeah, I'm just having a look down the order. One person who definitely went off was, where's he gone now? He's completely disappeared off the timing screen. Trying to find it. It was our pole position holder for the Pro-Am category. I'm just trying to find out where he's fallen to, but he has fallen down the field. Yeah, I don't know where he's gone actually, but I'm just seeing a load of colour because everyone is changing positions. But Christian Engelhardt up 17 positions. He's took perfect perfect from the back of the grid. He's let everything happen and fed his way through.
Well, we were talking a little bit before the broadcast that actually starting in pit lane may be a little bit of a boon to some of these drivers to be able to avoid any of those opening problems as they have. We focus back here on Stuart Wyness, the Track Scotland driver, the leader of the Pro-Ams right now. By the way, it was Christoph Regenwetter that was on pole. Thank you for that, David. But Paul, right now, looking like we're in a little bit of the calm phase. I think everybody got some of that incidents out of their skin, and they're able to go.
Oh, indeed. As you can see around here, and we just take a look back at what happened. We can see got the camera focused on Paul Collishaw here as he made his way down into the third corner, and oh goodness me, being turned there by the McLaren, and indeed the McLaren being turned with it, and a lot of drivers having to park up or take evasive action. And we're talking only about how narrow this circuit is, and particularly David was talking about it, and that is an example how narrow the circuit is, plus a couple of drivers coming together, and it is pandemonium in the end. But very well done to those drivers who had to take the evasive action. But coming back to your point there, DJ, about now, after we've had the opening couple of laps, things settling down indeed here, because overtaking, as we said earlier, comes at a premium. Particularly, we can see Stuart Wyness here. It's the case you get into the rhythm, and now you've got to think about managing the car, and Cope will be doing this the most first and foremost because he's right up there, and thinking out those lap times, looking for that consistency. Don't put a foot wrong, because as soon as you put a wheel off on this circuit, it is game over effectively. You are going off into the distance, and then you've got to try and bring that car back under control.
Exactly. Racing at this circuit, you're almost racing the track more than you're racing some of the other drivers. And one driver who is racing the track perfectly right now is Thomas Cope, pulling that gap out to around about a second there as he works his way through those chicanes. Always very, very tough. Those tire barriers there on the inside, very, very solid, and they will come out to bite you. But it looks like Cope and Valentini starting to pull away a little bit here, David, starting to stretch their legs.
Yeah, these two have been the class of the field here this season, and just always been quite consistently up there, and that's why they're up there in the championship. Lucas Lang, another one, that's why he's second in the championship. Just looking very quickly at the timing screen, we have had only 7 people actually come into the pits out of the 35 it started. So even though you saw all that chaos, not a huge amount of damage done there, but it's going to sort of stop drivers being able to put up with it until their big mandatory pit stop later on in the race.
Exactly, and so that is good news for them, but it has stretched the field out pretty significantly here at this point. You check back here, Stuart Wyness, the Pro-Am driver, looking a little bit aggressive here on Tim Spesser up ahead of him. Now this is a battle in, it's an inter-class battle. Spesser in the Pro category, Wyness in the Pro-Am category, but that does not mean these two are not able to fight. A little bit of a better run for Wyness. Here he's going to have a look down to the inside, going into Cascades. Is he going to be able to make this work? Gets ahead and gets it done through Island Bend.
Absolutely perfect there by Stuart Wyness. He's been driving brilliantly for the last 2 or 3 rounds, to be honest, and is a bit surprised at his class winner. I don't think it was last week, it was the week before. So he's been driving absolutely brilliantly, but I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of Tom Bingham right now, Paul, would you? He's got all these Pro-Am drivers around him. He's miles ahead of his Am rival, and you just don't want to get involved with anybody else.
Oh, indeed, and that's one of the things here for Bingham. All he has to think about at this point is, okay, Gill's down in P14. The gap between the two of them is 5 seconds. Bingham doesn't need to do anything flashy here. If he finds that Milliard comes up behind him and looks at potential move, he may want to fight it a little bit just to say he's claimed a Pro-Am Scout, but at the same time, does he really want to fight it too hard? Because he's not battling with them. It's an interclass battle. He should be focused more on battling with Gill, who's a lot further back here. So in his position, he's just got to keep putting those laps in and take it easy. As we look over to David Gill here, who, to be fair, putting in some good laps himself, and well, the Audi driver here, I think, starting to build a little bit of momentum as he's stuck behind Hoka Merla right now.
Yeah, the battle of the Audis there is Gill is up 2 positions on the day, able to take advantage a little bit of that early lap kerfuffle as there they go down now through Old Hall Corner. See what it is, these gaps really starting to spread themselves out a little bit, and I'm getting the sense here that specifically for the leaders in class that this is all just going to stabilize here for a little while as we talk about that rhythm, we talk about feeling the track out until we get into the craziness that is the lap traffic here. As I mean, Frisna may have had an issue seeing him fall down a couple of positions there, David.
Yeah, Frisna still up in 3rd in the class at the moment. Having a battle with Christian Engelhardt, who's dropped a position, but in that battle now is Kieran Smart. As we just go to replay, here is Christian Engelhardt through Island Bend, and Frisna right behind him. Does Engelhardt just outbrake himself into a banking? Yeah, luckily that banking, almost took out Frisna into the side of him, and there goes Kieran Smart past. And I said it before, Kieran Smart has to start moving in this race. He's 4th in the championship. He really needs some big points here today, and he's moving through very well, up 12 positions so far, and he's kept it relatively clean as well.
Yes, he has, and there you can see the Track Scotland driver in the BMW. He's got Frisna now directly ahead of him. Needs to get as many positions as he can to try to go back up through the field, especially as the gaps continue to grow up towards the top. And, you know, Paul, this isn't exactly a track that I would necessarily think would favor the BMW as much. We tend to think of that BMW as a little bit more of a straight line monster, tends to be a little bit understeery, but by Smart here rather doing a great job with it.
Oh, indeed. And just on that point about the BMW perhaps not being the favourable car at the circuit, Oulton Parker circuit with a lot of rotation focus corners, particularly here at turn number 3, Cascades coming on through. You want the rear of the car to come around as smoothly as possible, and that's why we are seeing, for example, the Lamborghinis up front, our top 3 overall at Lamborghinis. We've got Ferrari out there in P4 and Matthias Beer, and as you look further down the order, you start to see the front engine rear wheel drive machines such as the Track Scotland BMW M4 Kieran Smart here. But the return of it is, of course, the fact this car's going to be more stable going into the corners. If the driver can point it through the corners, such as coming up into the chicane here, it will be the case. It's going to go well later in the race, because in return, drivers in the Ferraris, for example, the Lamborghinis do have to worry about perhaps they bring that rear end around a little bit too early, particularly the McLaren drivers, as we talked about earlier on.
Well, we've already seen what can happen with, I believe it was Christoph Regenleiter there having that little issue going through Shell Oils. As here comes Kieran Smart starting to have a good look on the back of that Ferrari of Frisna. Is he going to have a little bit of a look as they make their way past Water Tower going down into Druids? Not going to be able to get it done there. Smart kicking up a little bit of dust on the entrance of the corner, David.
Yeah, just a little bit of dust, but he's managed to, and this is a move which Frisna will probably just give the position. He's seen Smart flying up behind him. Just a little bit of news from the bottom of the timing tower. Daniel Merchant out on lap 1, so a bit too much damage there for him in that first lap instant. Madjur has just jumped to the pits, so I'm presuming he's had an issue out on track, which has probably ended up with a little bit of damage.
Probably has. We'll have to check on that, but Kieran Smart, they're able to get by Frisna as they work their way through Cascades. The next driver he's going to have his eyes set on is Rene Hugenhout, directly up ahead of him in that Ferrari. As they come through Shell Oils, watching the cars rotate around, you can see him really working that BMW, trying to get it to go. Checking in here on Tom Bingham, rather. He's now got Tommy Milliard behind him in that Lamborghini, starting to close down a little bit. Another interclass battle here, Paul.
Indeed, and for Bingham now being reeled in by Muljord in the Lamborghini, he's got to continue to think about the situation with regards to the gap. The good news in his favour, however, is he's actually extended the gap to his class rival of Gill, who's in P40. It's now up to 6 seconds here, so Bingham could, if he feels that pressure starting to breathe down his neck, he could potentially look at a brief lift-off down one of the straightaways here in order to be able to take that pressure away, as I believe it's the case. We've had Beer go off circuit there just in the rear of the camera. He's got it very wrong coming out of Druids, and Bingham gains a place, but I think he'll be losing the place very shortly at the rate this is moving.
I think he will as well. And yeah, that was Matthias Beer turned around underneath the bridge, so not sure what happened to him there. We'll have to check that out as we continue to watch this battle. Milnord looking very, very aggressive. Doesn't want to make the pass down into Old Hall. It looks like today that Cascades has been the overtaking opportunity, but a little bit of a better jump off of the line there for Tom Bingham will help him escape as the flames spit out of the back of that McLaren, as they are wont to do. One of the textbook things there that that car is known for, bringing it down now through Island Bend. Well, they are not looking like he wants to make the attack quite yet.
Yeah, just having a look at Matthias Beer, he has headed to pit lane, so there is some damage there. I think this may be a replay of what's happened. It's such a shame for Matthias Beer. Another driver who's been driving so well the last few rounds, really promoted himself up into the battles for the lead. It's just getting on the grass outside into and under the white bridge, and that was Lucas Lang, second in the points, just missing Beer coming back across the track after hitting the bridge.
Yeah, very, very lucky there for him. As we focus back in now on the battle between Bingham and Milliard, this is one of the closest battles we have out on track at the moment. The leader's continuing to go around Cope, being able to build that gap up to about 2.5 seconds, so he is in a field unto himself. We're going to jump back here as Kieran Smart continues his battle up through the field. He's now got Andrew Broom directly ahead of him, Paul.
Indeed, and he's going up the inside here, coming down into Lodge Corner. It's going to be a straightforward pass. Can he get it stopped on the apex? He does indeed. A nice move from Kieran Smart, their textbook, as he now makes his way to the end of lap, heading through Deer Leap and onto another one. But we can see there, Broom just taking a little bit of a peek to the inside, not really looking for the move, just coming out the toe there to bleed off a little bit of speed in the run down towards Old Hall Corner. But Kieran Smart continuing to charge. And in terms of his lap times, his sectors right now, to give you an idea, he's pretty much almost on the pace of the top 5 at this point. His last lap being that 32.4, impeded a little bit by it and making the overtake, but still he is pushing hard right now, is the Scotsman.
Yeah, pushing very, very hard, trying to get some good points for that Track Scotland machine. He is 23, 24 seconds off of your leader right now, but he just continues to gain. That is now David Gill directly ahead of him, running P2 in the amateur category in that Audi. Not seeing a lot of the Four Rings exactly having such a great day. I would have expected the nimbleness of the car to help out a little bit, but that car also notorious for not liking curbs. We jump back around here. This is Tim Spesser as he tries to close down a little bit on Stuart Wyness, the leader in the Pro-Am category. This is currently your highest placed Audi.
Yeah, Tim Spesser driving really well. I'm going to tell you, everybody's driving really well. Two people who aren't is Regan Wetter and Sampson, who have crashed, and they are in the pit. So, but not the David, but Regan Wetter wanted from the pole of a Pro-Am category. But Spesser, Wyness is going to watch Spesser and just be really careful if he tries to take a dive up the inside. There's no need to fight him. But just up the road from Stuart Wyness, it's a returning Matthew McBride, who did the first 2 rounds of the championship, and in the Track Scotland Cup, Lamborghini is doing very well to hold on to the back of Lucas Lang. And just up the road, Jensen Adriansen.
Yeah, everybody running within similar distances of one another here at this point, and there is Adriansen's as he works his way through. He's about 2.8 seconds off of Valentini up ahead of him, and these top 3, I'm not getting the sense that they're pushing a whole lot here. We could just be seeing a little bit of calmness, also maybe a little bit of fuel strategy. How much of that fuel saving can you get done around here, Paul, when there's not a lot of heavy braking zones? But before we get to that, let's go back to a replay here. This is David Gill, and I believe that's Kieran Smart. Yep, gonna go down, try to go down to the inside. Whoa!
Oh, lucky boy, Kieran Smart. Oh, well done by David Gill as well, not to slam into the side of somebody there, but having to go visit the ducks at the side of a pond into Shell Oils, and there'll be a lot of damage to the front of the Audi, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him as one of the early pitters if he can make it through to his pit stop.
And there you can see Molior trying to get by Bingham. But David, I come back to you. How much fuel saving can you get done around this circuit? I mean, it's not like Hockenheim where we were last time out, where you're definitely be able to save in the draft a little bit. How much can you do with a light right foot?
It'll be a lot to do just lifting and coasting into corners, obviously not pressing the accelerator too aggressively out of the corners, which you don't want to do around Oulton Park, because you will just eat the tyres on the traction. And these drivers they pretty much know how their cars will handle as the race goes on, as Bingham is flashing his lights. I'm not sure why, because there's nobody exactly in front of him, but he just catches that dust that's been brought up, probably by Gill. And yeah, Bingham's in dangerous territory here. But yeah, Shell Oils, the 2 chicanes, I'd be there using a bit of lift and coast, and just maybe using a higher gear to get out the corners.
Well, we'll have to see who's able to do that, as we are a quarter down in this race. Expecting pit stops to normally fire off about the halfway point, the 30-minute mark, as they do. Watching here as this battle continues to rage on between Bingham and Moyord, with Roland Shartner starting to close in behind. Whoa! That was a car off in front. Another one of the Track Scotland drivers. Not sure exactly who that was, but very lucky to get through all of this, Paul.
Indeed, and that was Adam Morrison having a bit of a moment there at the second chicane, but he was able to get the car stopped and not have it scatter its way across the circuit. But now this is where, as we take a look back at what happened only moments ago, and will the Track Scotland AM driver making his way on down in towards the corner, we ride on board as he came into his lops. He gets a good run through 10-11, gets the power down, now making his way into Knickerbrook corner, just takes it a little bit too far to the left. The car gets hooked onto the grass and tries to nurse it back onto the road there, but 2 wheels on the grass, 2 wheels on the curb stroke the asphalt, and that in the end unsettled the car. But fortunately, not going too far to the right to make contact with the battle for what is P8 between Moyniard and also seeing there Bingham, but looking a bit further back. Kieran Smart looking for another move, coming down to the Cascades here versus what is Hupke Muller, and well, Muller's got a little bit wide. That's going to give Smart a lot of a run, but the German driver pulls the inside here. Now, is this for defense or is this to let him through? It's to let him through, I think, as Smart goes round the outside on the racing line, and Kieran Smart definitely pushing forward here, but relying a little bit, I think, on the politeness of the interclass battling as well.
I have to agree with you there. That is some good heads up from Arthur Hupke Merle, and we talked a little bit about the gentlemanly nature of this series and how everybody is pretty contained, pretty courteous as they go around. Ooh, little bit of a look there for Tommy Moyniard as he, and that's going to be Bingham running wide. That's going to give the position over to Moyniard. Bingham going to lose another position there, it looks like, to Roland Schartner, and another to Adam Gladden. Now, none of those are going to affect him overall in that amateur stands. He still has plenty of space in between him, but you don't want to be losing out on those points.
No, that's the danger for Bingham at the moment. He gets involved in a battle very easy to do when you're just trying to drive your own race. You see a car, you think, yeah, go on, I'll battle it, and then all of a sudden you might have issues. We saw Bingham very quick at most tracks, but there's been the odd little mistake here and there, and here we go down into his slops. We'll see what happens here. It's just a look at first. He's not really close enough, and on the brakes he's not close enough as well, and just scares Tom off the road.
Well, and that's exactly why we talk about sometimes the mental game of racing, trying to poke your nose a little bit to the inside and the outside to try to scare some of those drivers off, and I'd have to say that's exactly what it is. And now look who's coming up behind. It is Kieran Smart in that very, very quick track Scotland BMW, as he now closes in on the back of your amateur class leader, Paul.
Indeed, and whereas we see here Hugenhout making his way up into Shellwell's corner and battling with Broom in front of him and Engelhardt behind him, and as they roll on through here, the trio, you can see Hugenhout getting a really nice run out of the hairpin, but it's a short run up to the next sequence of corners. He's not really able to capitalise, but it does with the Ferrari driver here getting the better exits versus Lamborghini peers around him. Now, will he be able to attempt to move here down to his lops? Well, in fact, it looks as though they've got Engelhardt taking a little bit of a peek, a little bit of a distracting look as they roll on through. But in this sequence, David, your thoughts, Lamborghini versus Ferrari, do you think the Ferrari's got the edge?
I would say probably the Lamborghini looking at the qualifying, but the Ferrari is a great all-round car, and around Oulton Park, absolutely a perfect car for anybody to drive. I'm just having a quick look at the lead gap. It's down to 1.5 seconds. It was 2 seconds when Paul started talking, so something's happening to Tom Cope, whether he's in traffic or just Tom Valentini is deciding now's the time to push before the pit stops, but the gap come down by about half a second on the last lap.
Coming down here, and we could see a little bit of a change for that, as you said. I'm not sure if that was necessarily a mistake there for Cope. It's just slowly coming down. Cope running a 31.8 last time by, and Valentini running a 31.4, so certainly trying to close it in. And this is definitely the part of the race where you want to start putting those moves on. 20 minutes down, 40 minutes to go. Getting closer to that pit stop window, really opening up over the course of the race. You definitely want to be pushing here if you're Tom Valentini, Paul.
Indeed, and that's the one thing I was wondering for all this. We saw the gap open up to 2.5 seconds, and these two have really been pushing hard. Watching their lap times, they've been yo-yoing their effectiveness, whereby Cope's putting some very strong laps. Valentini's responded, but now Valentini seems to be on the push. I wonder if Cope's backing off a little bit, potentially. Over the course of the next laps, we'll find out. But perhaps Cope's thinking, you know, I'm going to make Valentini sweat a little now, take a little bit out of the car before the pit window opens up, in terms of when we're expecting those pit stops to occur. And in doing so, could he perhaps make Valentini just take a little bit too much out of the car before they're due to come in?
Very well could. I mean, we haven't talked about it a whole lot here over the course of this, that you do not take tires here in this series. Traditionally, you do it on a single set of tires, and this track can definitely take out the tires from you a little bit. It's a lot of fast sweeping corners, not a lot of heavy braking zones, and so that can certainly slow you down. And as Paul said there, David, you've got to keep on track of your stuff, and that may just be a little bit of the mental game right now that Cope is playing. Jump back to a replay here. This is Till Beam and a crash.
Just missing the rear. I think that was of Patrick Eimer, and decides to jump to pits for some reason. So I don't know whether that may be a technical issue for Till Beam. on his rig or something like that, because he just didn't seem to have a braking performance there to get the car stopped, and maybe just did it for the safety of everybody else while he's on the circuit if he has got an issue. But Tom Valentini, like you say, just push him out a little bit harder, maybe using a bit of tyres up. We're very lucky to have Jamie Fluke on the producing, who is one of the drivers for Apex Racing Team, and he can feed us a little bit more information than we know about Oulton Park, and said it was a bit of a tyre burner if you don't be too careful. And like you say, it's quite a long time really you're going to lose if you do decide to change tyres, and they don't often do it in this series.
No, they don't often do. As we focus back in the field a little bit more, this is Christian Engelhardt that we follow on in that Lamborghini. A little bit of a battle starting to brew behind him between Hugenhout and Friesne. Friesne had a little bit of a look going down into Hislops there, decided not to go for it. Yet another interclass battle there, Paul. Friesne, I think, just wanting to try to gain some positions, hopefully try to come in on Gil if he can.
Indeed, and with Gil having that moment earlier on now, Friesne really is the second place driver, really the best of the rest in the AM class as things stand, with Bingham some way off in the distance. And I wonder whether Friesne's feeling just a little bit of pressure to put some pressure on Hugenhout here, because Hugenhout's actually dropped a place behind Engelhardt. We didn't see it happen on screen, but it has happened, and now Friesne's not too far behind. And Gil, to give you an idea, currently 5.5 seconds back, but looking at their respective lap times, it is the case that Gil is lapping 0.6 of a second a lap faster on average right now. Friesne is not going to be safe for much longer in that P2 position in the AM class.
No, I don't think he is, and we're going to see that battle definitely start to develop here over the course of these closing moments. We jump up here to Adam Gladden, who just lost a position to Kieran Smart, the Track Scotland driver, continuing his climb up through the field. Here we go back to check out a replay of that move. This is going to be going down into Cascades. Here you can see Smart just able to carry good momentum out of the corner. I think he saw that one coming and let him go, David.
Yeah, Gladden was not playing the fool there. He knew exactly what was going on. And Kieran Smart up 20 places, setting good lap times. His best is a 31.6. There's a 31.4 by Herbino, who's sneaking up through the field as well, up into 13th overall. But then Thomas Cope has just decided, nope, Tom Valentini, you're coming nowhere near me, and sets a 30.79. The only driver to go sub for 1 minute 31 here today, and almost a league of his own with times like that.
Yeah, he very much is, and what this battle on your screen is going to start to be getting interesting there. You mentioned it with Herbino starting to climb back through the field. He is on a mega charge, and now Roland Schartner there in that lead Porsche of this gaggle of cars. Smart trying to get by him. Herbino looking like he's going to try to maybe get a move done on Tom Bingham there to be able to move himself forward. Maybe a little bit of a late lunge going down, but Smart definitely starting to challenge. Herbino has gotten around Bingham behind, and I think that is just going to light a bigger fire under Kieran Smart now, as he's only got one car in between himself and another pro driver, Paul.
Indeed, and the problem with that is, with regards to Schartner at the head of this pack, he's only got Kieran Smart between himself and Adam Gladden right now, so you can see that's why Schartner does not want to lose that position, because he's essentially using Smart as a rear guard, but in return, as you say, Smart wants to make the move, because otherwise he's got Herbino on the charge here, and the Delta Sport driver is really putting in the laps right now.
Yeah, very much is. And there comes the move from Kieran Smart on Roland Schartner as they work their way down into Druids. Got the move done. Now Schartner's going to find himself maybe under a little bit of an attack there from Gladden, just as you said, Paul. Trying to see what it is. I think that was a little bit of a wide run there for Kieran Smart. They all work their way through the corners. Christoph Herbino looking very threatening there in the background on Adam Gladden. Gladden letting Herbino on by. Some good gentlemanly conduct there.
Yeah, Gladden definitely being the kindest of the Pro-Am field here today, sitting 4th overall in the Pro-Am category, so that's a good run for Adam Gladden so far, and he knows that Lamborghini is a strong car here today. We've got 3 in the Pro category leading, 4 in the top 5, sorry. Lucas Lang being the spoiler in the Porsche yet again, and Herbino now looking up the inside of Schartner into Island Corner, and that is Gladden having a look up the inside. There's a bit of contact, but the space was there for the Lamborghini, and he's got past Schartner.
I've got to say, I think Schartner left himself open on that advantage. Definitely did it there, but it doesn't look like Schartner's going to let this go quite easily. Loses some time there coming through Britons as they climb over Hilltop right now, and they've got to watch out. Tom Bingham there in the AM category. He's close behind as well. He has a little bit of a look. Arthur Hoopka Merle back in the Audi. He could be a little bit interested as well. Everything firing off here in the mid-pack, Paul.
Indeed, and I do wonder with Schartner, he would have been caught by surprise with that move. I mean, Gladden had a lot of faith in the brakes there to get the car to stop glitches against Apex. We take a look back, I believe, at what happened here. So you can see Schartner letting them through Herbino as they made the way through Iron Corner, and Gladden, it was so much momentum with Schartner finding himself able to lift off, and the space was there. But you can see Schartner was sort of half committed to turning in, and I think in his rearview mirror, he might have thought to himself, wait, is Gladden going to dare to try and do it? And you can see a flash of lights there. But right now, I think Gladden's saying, well, you snooze, you lose, because he's now going to try and charge off, and well, they do need to, because as you say, it is the case that Hoopka Merle is a little bit further back. He's got Bingham between himself and Schartner, but Schartner definitely, after that moment, the momentum has gone from him, because you can see Gladden is just rolling away, already a second gap between the two of them.
Yeah, and that goes to show you what can happen here. Very easy to get caught up behind another driver when you are, as we're side by side up ahead there. It looked like as one of the McLaren's getting past. Good battle here in the back, though, between Engelhardt and Broom. Broom leading the way. Engelhardt having a little bit of a look going down through Island Bend, but nothing doing there quite yet, David.
Yeah, nothing quite yet, but we do have our first pit stoppers. Andy Thompson has been in, David Gill's been in, and Patrick Imer, the winner from last time out, not quite having it his own way this time, so he's been in pits. Stefan Anderson and Alan Mystique have just visited in, and if you look on the timing tower, a look at that, what do you call a cluster of Ferraris, but from 17th, which is the top Ferrari in the field, which is a surprise round a circuit like this, down to 25th. There's, well, a lot of them.
I mean, it is the prancing horse. Maybe it's a herd of Ferraris. Let's go with that. It's a herd of Ferraris. Yeah, as you said, a lot of them there just clustered around that area. Here comes another look there from the 146, trying to see if there's anything to be had. Trying to get by Andrew Broom here is Christian Engelhardt. He's going to have another look going down into Old Hall. Does it look like anything's going to be happening there quite yet? But the pressure is certainly on Andrew Broom here to try to see if he can fend off this, I have to say, clearly much quicker 146 Lamborghini behind him.
Yeah, it's Christian Engelhardt. Just having a look there. That's Alex Fields just getting out of the way. We saw the Mercedes in the wall at Shell Oils earlier, so that's why he is just jumping out of the way. But Paul, the pit stops are starting now, but we haven't seen any from the leaders just yet, which is, normally we see somebody take a risk at this stage, but nobody sort of wants to be the first to jump.
Oh, indeed, no, and we'll come back to that point in a moment, David, as we see here Kieran Smart looking and keying up the move into Cascades, or is it the case he's got it wrong here? I think he's got it a little bit wrong, or has he? No, he went for the move in the end, had a really good run out to Cascades corner and heading up into Island corner. Well, got it done there. Kieran Smart past what was there. I believe that was Herbino, and up into P7, unless I'm very much mistaken. But the Track Scotland driver just continued to build that momentum. But meanwhile, coming back to your point with regards to pit stops, I think it's the case the majority of our leaders do not want to give up that track position at the moment. They're worried about the fact they go into the pits, they may come out behind drivers who've yet to pit and are in battles, and therefore they will lose time. But I do wonder between Engelhardt and Hugenhout, also not Engelhardt and Hugenhout, Engelhardt and Broom, where it's the case that Engelhardt is now losing time by trying to battle Broom. Perhaps he should take the battle to the pit lane and try to get the jump through the undercut, because he's losing a lot of time and being tucked in behind.
You absolutely read my mind on that, Paul, as they get their way through there. By the way, that was Lucas Lang that we saw coming down pit lane, and Hugenhout now down pit lane as well. So plenty of drivers firing off here. We follow Tommy Mulliard, who is currently in that second position in the Pro-Am category, David.
Yeah, Lucas Lang has come out in that herd of Ferraris down in 18th place at the moment, with Matthias Beer up behind him. So, but as you can see, there's a bit more space there for him to start putting in some lap times to try and keep, I think it'll be more trying to keep Matthew McBride behind than closing on Jensen Adriansen. But yet again, up the front, finally, Tom Valentini has popped in a sub 31 second lap time by a 100th of a second, by a whisker. But 30.84 by Thomas Cope this time. Cope is just absolutely flying. As Valentini's going to have to watch out for this BMW. It's one of the Track Scotland cars just coming out the pits, and I think that may actually be Morrison again. Yeah, I think it's Adam Morrison, because the others have not been into the pits just yet.
Indeed, they have not. It is Adam Morrison, the Track Scotland AM driver, currently running around in 30th place, as there is the other Track Scotland driver that we have been focused on for the majority of the day, Kieran Smart, as he flies his way through Old Hall, and that is Christoph Herbino directly behind him. These are two of your hardest chargers in the race. Smart up 23, Herbino up 20. We've got some more pit stops firing off. That's Tom Bingham coming down pit lane. I see a couple other drivers there. That's Edmund Frisna. That is the battle for the AM lead that we watch right now, Paul, in pit lane.
Indeed, and I think Bingham already been parked up then, seeing Frisner come in for him, that's probably going to put the biggest smile on his face, because he's currently stationary being serviced. So long as he's got his pit stops out correctly, he's leaving the pit lane already, and he will now know as he makes his way back out into the circuit, he just needs to hook up the remaining 27 minutes of this race, plus the final lap, and that win in the AM class here at Oulton Park is pretty much all said and done. However, commentator's curse not included, plus also the fact it's not over until you cross the finish line and that checkered flag is out. So Bingham's still got to do the job, but it's been made easy now because he's coming out with a sizable advantage of 8 seconds over Frisner.
And the leaders are opting to come down pit lane here with 33, 34 minutes down in the race. Cope, Valentini, and Adrianson's your top three, all diving down pit lane. Let's watch Matthew McBride, the Track Scotland Lamborghini driver. Let's see if he follows suit. He does not. So McBride able to stretch this out for another lap here. He will inherit the lead around them. And so looks like Wyness, Spesser all coming down pit lane. Smart is coming down. Herbino is not. So some varying strategy here, David, of different drivers able to make this stretch just a little bit longer.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise to us anymore that Herbino goes at least a lap quicker, a lap longer. Sorry, it's he's almost a fuel whisperer at times. Christian Engelhardt has kept going as well, so he is coming out. He's ahead of Jensen Adriansen, who's going to have Lucas Lang on his tail very, very quickly there. The gap looking at about 7 seconds currently, but that's coming down as we speak while Adriansen gets up to speed. Andrew Broom is a third in class. He's running really well at the moment in the Pro-Am category. So obviously the table's going to mix up a little bit right now and just see where people come out. But Kieran Smart coming out in 11th place, and this guy started from the back. He is putting on a performance here today, and he's got Tim Spesser just 2 seconds ahead, and that is a position in class finally for Kieran Smart.
Exactly, and he's got to try to close down on the back of that Audi there. Both of those drivers, as you said, fighting for position. Everything a little bit jumbled up because of the pit stops here. But we'll have to see what Spesser can do if he's going to be able to hold off on that about 2-second advantage, as you said. Now, that is the 118 directly ahead of him here. We've got McBride coming down pit lane. So, as expected, that Lamborghini comes down. Joining him is Christoph Herbino. Now, this, Paul, is going to be the battle to watch between Herbino and Smart to see where they come out in regards to one another.
Oh, indeed, because of the fact Herbino was closing up to the back of Smart, and the gap between the two of them was in the region of about 1.5 to 2 seconds when we saw Smart peeling to the pits. Now, Herbino's just making his way, he's just stationary at the moment. Smart making his way through Druids here. There's a little bit of a battle going on further up the road, that being between Spesser and Broom. Spesser's going to have to go round the outside, and as they roll on through into the right hand here, is the case. Well, Herbino has left his pit box. Now, will Smart be able to get ahead of him, or will Herbino make the jump? I think Herbino's going to just make the jump because he's just gone off the limiter. And as he makes it out the pit lane, it's going to be very close, but I think Herbino's done it. Smart's coming through here, and Herbino has jumped him, and that gap has pretty much reversed.
Indeed it is, and he not only jumped Kieran Smart, but he was also able to jump Tim Spesser in the process, and he has got a whole lot of clear track up ahead of him, and so that is great news for the Delta Sport driver. David, you were just telling me that in my ear that Stuart Wyness looked like he had a long stop.
Yeah, it's 1 minute 2 seconds for the stationary time when everybody else is about 21 seconds. So a terrible stop for the Scot, falling down to 7th in class, 20th overall, and he's got a long way to go to get back into the lead of this class. I just wonder whether that may have been some kind of penalty for pit lane speeding, because 40 seconds sounds about right.
Yeah, the timing would work out on that, so I think that could very well be what it is as we continue to focus here on Christophe Herbino. Now, he has got a pretty sizable gap to try to make up to Matthew McBride, the returning Track Scotland driver, of about 8.8 seconds that he's got to try to close down here in just over 20 minutes. That's going to be a pretty tall order, but as we continue to run here, traffic going to start to play more and more of a factor, Paul.
Indeed, and on top of that, Herbino, the respective outlaps between the two drivers, or the respective inlaps, Herbino was a second faster compared to McBride, so he is showing the pace right now. There is no doubt about that, and again, 1 second faster on the outlap. So if you put it together here with the fact we've just got over 20 minutes remaining, plus also what is approximately an 8-second gap, he can definitely do it, albeit some traffic could intervene and may help him get that gap down sooner. McBride right now has got to up the lap times here, because if he doesn't, Herbino will be there come the end and will be salivating the prospect of that P5.
Yeah, and Christophe Herbino, one of the fast drivers that we know. There is McBride on your screen right now, keeping an eye. He's got about 3.5 seconds up to Lucas Lang, and Lang has been able to hold on to that 4th place relatively well. No real battles up at the front. Cope continues to build that gap. It's now up to about 5 seconds over Tom Valentini, and Jensen Andreassen's a full 10 seconds off the back of them for the podium. So these podium positions looking very, very spaced out, David.
Yeah, very spaced out at the front of the race, but we do have battles further back in Pro-Am. It's only 2 seconds between Tommy Major and Adam Gladden, who have both jumped Roland Shartner, so all change with Stuart Winness's long pit stop as well. So maybe this is just a day that nobody actually wants to win the Pro-Am category.
It may be, as we see those positions just continually getting shaken around a little bit. There is Moyord, the leader right now of the Pro-Am category. As you said, there you can see in the back of your screen, that is Adam Gladden coming into the shot. Now, that's a 1.8, 1.9 second advantage right now. Certainly not enough to rest on his laurels, but at least enough to give him some breathing room, Paul.
Indeed, but as they come across the timing line here, just looking at their latest laps, a 32.5 Miljord. Meanwhile, Gladden by comparison, a 32.2. So that gap has come down by a further 0.3 a second as they roll them through. And you can see there at the bottom of your screens, ladies and gentlemen, that gap is coming down in the favour of Gladden, lap on lap, albeit by a couple of attempts here, a couple of attempts there. And, well, if they continue to push at this point, of course, Miljord may be taking it relatively easy until that gap comes down to about 1 second. That's when he might push, much like what we saw with Cope and Valentini earlier in the battle for the overall lead. But do keep in mind as well, the Norwegian, unless I'm mistaken, was our winner in the Pro-Am class last time out at Hockenheim.
He was indeed, so trying to continue on that run of good luck here. Moyord, definitely one of those drivers that to keep an eye on over the course of the race, always very quick. There is another driver to always keep an eye on, Tom Bingham, who continues to lead in that AM category. He has got a big, big gap of about 2 cars in between himself and Eden Frisna as they continue to run. That's some healthy breathing room there for him.
Yeah, it's healthy, but it's not really extended since earlier on in the race. He had about a 10-second lead, and obviously probably trying to take it a little bit easy through that battle which he was involved in with the Pro-Am drivers. But yeah, Tom will be happy with 9 seconds, but he knows it can just disappear. He's had a couple of times this season where it's just gone a little bit wrong, and Frisna is in his own battle with Tom McKell and Christian Engelhardt behind him, and it might actually do Eden a little bit of help by letting these two go. Tom McKell, the pro driver, is slightly quicker on the lap times, and so is Engelhardt, so it might be worth letting these go, which I think he is doing. There we go, he must be able to hear us. Let's them go, or at least one of them go, and we'll try and follow them up towards Tom Bingham.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy there for him. You see him getting off to the side there, letting Engelhart by as well. Maybe take a little bit of a hint of the draft. Not super powerful around this circuit, as this is much more of a club tight and twisting type circuit, but it'll certainly help if he can follow in those tire tracks. We jump back here. Tim Spesser, Kieran Smart continuing his charge as he tries to work now on the back of the German, the Track Scotland driver. It's BMW versus Audi, Paul.
Indeed, and now as we enter this late stage of the race with less than 20 minutes to go here, this is where we'll start to see the BMW really unleash its strength. And one of them is its race pace duration, in the fact that Audi very sensitive to curbs, also the fact that it's more likely to wear those rear tyres, and this circuit with a lot of medium speed apexes, we want to bring that rear around very sharply. The BMW now, with less fuel in the car, will start to feel a bit lighter as it comes through the course, whereas the Audi, well, the driver, in the form of Tim Spesser, has got to be worrying about putting a bit too much steering angle in there, and with that pressure on as well, he'll want to maximise that lap time, but could he perhaps unsettle the car a little bit too much as they make their way onto another lap? And well, Smart definitely now really inching ever close. I mean, he can almost reach out and grab that rear wing.
Yeah, he certainly wants it here as they go down through the avenue and into Cascades. Here's where it can start to stretch his legs a little bit. That's a great run for Kieran Smart. As he goes down to the inside, trying to make the move, going through Island Bend. Looks like he's got it done, and there's nothing there that Tim Spesser can do.
No, there's nothing Spesser can do. There's not a lot anybody can do about Kieran Smart. He's absolutely on a charge. But just now it's 4 seconds up to a flying Christophe Herbeneau, who is trying to close to 5 seconds to Matthew McBride. And he is succeeding at the moment on the last lap at a rate of 1.2 seconds. He closed on Matthew McBride. So Christophe Herbeneau, the Belgian, is absolutely flying in the Lamborghini now. He seems to have took it a little bit easier early on in the race, made sure there's no incidents early on, had to start from a pit lane, but he's now kept his tyres in shape and can push to the end of the race.
Exactly. He's got a little bit of lap traffic to deal with. I believe that was Andy Thompson that we saw that he was trying to get around, and there he goes. And so he is now nice and clear, has some clear running to do. Andy running back in 28th overall, a lap down. Not the best day out for Andy. We've seen that McLaren run a lot higher in the field in previous races, but he is going to try to soldier on here as he was one of those drivers that was involved in some of those early incidents that we saw. Just about a quarter of the race left to go here. A little bit of a battle starting to shape up. Mikel trying to pull away from Christian Engelhart. We were checking in on this earlier, Paul, and it is separated a little bit, but not by too much.
Indeed, it does look as though Engelhart really does have the measure of what is Mikel's pace there. And for the Prime driver, this is a great opportunity as well, running behind the Pro, to see where the Pro driver may just be gaining a little bit lap on lap, although it's the case. I think Engelhart here is the one really gaining lap on lap. Plus, he also has that toe for some of the straightaways here. But as they make the way on down, I do wonder how long it'll be before they come up behind Hugenhout, who is only 4 seconds up the road. And I think Engelhart will be hoping that what Mikel can do is essentially just put him up nice and close to the back of Hugenhout, get in the way, and then give Engelhart the opportunity to perhaps dive down the inside, like we saw earlier up into Shell Oils, where we saw the battle between what was Schartner at the time, and also, unless I'm very much mistaken, I think that was Schartner versus Gladden.
Yes, indeed, it was them, and as he continues to close down there a little bit, Engelhart just trying to push that in as much as he can. I want to take this time, well, maybe not, thinking about a little bit of a move there. Christian Engelhart not going to be going for it there quite yet, but this battle certainly starting to get a little bit hotter and hotter, David.
Yeah, what is also getting hotter is Thomas Cope. 1 minute 30.57, fastest lap of the race. Has anybody told him he's 5 seconds in the lead? He doesn't need to be pushing this hard, but sometimes you have to keep your concentration like that, Paul, don't you? If you suddenly have that issue, as we see, I think that's Morrison off the track again on the exit of the corner. If you don't keep pushing, you can very easily lose that concentration.
Oh, most definitely. One of the most famous motorsport drivers of all, Ayrton Senna, was known as one of those drivers. If he wasn't driving at 100% all the time, as soon as he toned it down a tiny bit, there was a likelihood of a mistake. And a number of races he lost because he was told to turn it down, and in the end made some mistakes. But it is the case with Cope all the way out the front. He's pushing for it, and also he wants to put that fastest lap well out of everybody's reach in order to get those bonus points. But Engelhart here really close out, and in fact, Mikel's decided, I think, to lift off. He doesn't want Engelhart up behind him anymore, and Engelhart now, I think, is going to give him the thank you very shortly and go charging after Wes Hugenhout here with less than 15 minutes to go.
Indeed, and we'll have to see if he's able to do that. He's got about 4 seconds to try to get into, and while we've got a quick break, we want to thank our sponsors for today's broadcast, including Virtual Racing School, which helps you to improve your on-track performance with over 50-plus data packs for road and oval racing setups, track guides, data analysis software, and one-on-one coaching, and you can use that in conjunction with the Apex Racing Academy, which also has 29 data packs available with setups and track guides that integrates perfectly with VRS, that also includes some weekly coaching sessions. 2 great ways to try to improve your ability as a driver. And then, of course, we have to thank SDK Gaming, which is the way to add a virtual live HUD to iRacing, showing timing towers, enhanced relative boxes, mini-maps, fuel calculators, and more. You can stream to Twitch with one of the most complete and perfect software packages on iRacing, or broadcast your league like we are doing here. SDK Gaming syncs with your commentary teams and focuses on drivers with your broadcasters. You can adjust team strategy on the fly with the most accurate live timing on iRacing. I use SDK Gaming. It is absolutely crucial into my ability as a commentator and as a driver, and so I cannot recommend it enough. But as we focus back in on the racing on track, that is Christoph Urbano, as you see, trying to close that gap down between himself and Matthew McBride. They are one of the Track Scotland drivers, getting out of the way for him, clearing the path. That gap down to 2.5 seconds between himself and McBride, David.
Yeah, Christoph Urbano must think it's a Paloma ballroom here today, because the Lamborghini is absolutely rampaging. We've got Lamborghinis covering the top 6 places, apart from Lucas Lang, who's his lone little Porsche in the middle of it. He must have a red t-shirt on with the amount of balls flying around him. But McBride, sorry, is, I don't know why I said Brian McBride, Matthew McBride is now only 2 seconds ahead, but he has responded with his fastest lap of race to only allow Urbano 1/10 of a second that time by. But I just can't see him holding him back.
Well, and another thing that he's going to have a lot of problems is that he's got some more lap traffic up ahead of him that will inevitably cause him to fall a little bit behind. Hopefully he'll be able to catch this at the right area on track and not have too much to worry about it. But this is what we were talking about from the beginning, Paul. Tight and twisty confines, 11 minutes to go, lap traffic coming into the battle to decide who is going to be able to claim top 5 in the pro category.
Indeed, and with the rate of closure here as well, I mean, Urbano, to give you an idea, his lap times at the moment are practically matching the lap times of the top 2 here in terms of low 31s. McBride, meanwhile, high 31s, low 32s, and he's got the traffic ahead of him, but you can see Urbano is closing so quickly that McBride's going to need to catch this traffic by the end of this lap and find a way through very quickly, because otherwise Urbano is going to be breathing down his neck, and I'm sure McBride's got that in his mind right now. If he hasn't, then definitely right now his pit crew or his pit chief will have that in mind as well, because they roll through Druids here for another time. It is the case. Urbano is absolutely dancing around in this circuit. That Lamborghini is hooked up, and well, you can see it in the pictures. They come down in towards turn number 15 here. It's the case. The Belgian is just closing in the braking zones like nobody's business.
Indeed he is. He is pushing as much as he can, trying to see what he can get. As the gap comes across the line, it's down to 1.3 seconds in between the two. Christoph Urbano responding there, setting his own personal best lap, and here comes that lap traffic. David, this is not going to be great for McBride. He has got to hope to be able to get by them here soon.
Yeah, McBride obviously returning to the series, maybe just a little bit race rusty. We don't know what he's been doing away from the series over the last 3 or 4 rounds, but he's coming up behind James Hall, who seems to have had a lack of pace here today, which is unfortunate. I mean, he has done a 31 at some point in the race, but he's just got caught up in the traffic, and he's currently trying to pass Russell Fowler for position for 9th place in class. But yeah, this is a battle that's going on with 10 minutes to go. They're not going to want to be really kind to the leaders coming through and risk not being able to gain that position.
Yeah, that is not what he wants to have happen, and here it comes. This is all firing off. Now, this is James Hall and Russell Fowler directly ahead of him, and they are locked in a battle for position, so this is not what McBride wants to see at all. These two drivers trying to fight for their own positions out there. And just up ahead of them, that's Andrew Broom as well. 3 Pro-Am drivers here as they close up, coming into the final corners. And look how close Herbino is starting to get. Does he have the gap down within a second? Yes, he does. It's down to 0.6 as they cross the line. There, one of the lap cars getting out of the way, Paul, but this is starting to heat up. Herbino still just looking like he has got that car hooked up. He is on a charge.
He is indeed, and I think it's going to be the case that McBride will be breathing a sigh of relief with Paul there, being very kind of moving aside, but they've still got Fowler ahead of them, and Herbino will capitalise on this. What he wants to do, he'll want to get within 3 to 5 tenths of the back of McBride, so that when McBride finally close up on the back of Fowler, it's not going to be the case that Fowler just has to let McBride through. It'll be the case that he's also going to have to let Herbino through, and in the process, Herbino may get the momentum he needs as they come through Sheller's corner, and you can see there, McBride, he's having difficulty in settling that rear end down, so they roll up now towards the chicane, and that is where Herbino is gaining. He's just much more composed, and he's making McBride have to make all the tricky decisions, and here comes the ultimate decisions. They make the way down to Hislop's. Will McBride find a way past Fowler? Well, it's going to be Fowler lifts off there, and Herbino is going to be let through it, and Herbino has timed this perfectly, because now he can put all this pressure on, and whilst there's not enough traffic really to upset McBride for the brief while, they've got a bit of traffic up the head, and that is in the form of Broom. Right now, Herbino's right where he needs to be, within half a second, and ready to pounce as soon as McBride makes even the smallest of mistakes.
And there you can see just what that cost some of the drivers behind the Ferrari losing out as a result of that lift. Now they're going to have to come along on Andrew Broom. Project Eimer also directly up ahead of them. It looks like there that Herbino lost out just a little bit of time, but he's able to gain it again through the braking zones. That car so good under the brakes is the 92. The gap now hovering at about 0.4 of a second as they come up behind Andrew Broom. And this has got to be close time here for McBride. He is going to be hoping that he is going to be able to not be held up here, David.
Yo, I think that was Matthias Beer in the middle of a track, and it's took out Matthew McBride. It looked like a purple Ferrari. It was on the edge of the screen, but that's huge damage to the Track Scotland Lamborghini, and that's him out of the race. But we're just going to have a replay of it now. He comes out of Old Hall. Nicely done, just running a little bit wide, and then the car is just in the middle of... Oh, he's lost control. That's actually, that may not be... No, that may be Mystique, I think. That might be Alan Mystique. And just lost control on the grass and nowhere for McBride to go. And that's a huge shame for him after a run he's been putting together.
Oh my goodness, absolute heartbreak there for McBride. That does gift the position back to Christoph Herbino, and now he has smooth sailing. He's got about 3 seconds up the road to try to catch in on Lucas Lang, but I think with about 6 minutes to go in this race, that's going to be a little bit too late. We focus back here on the leader, Thomas Cope, who has just crossed over the start-finish line. He continues to lead, continues to grow that gap to Tom Valentini. Paul, it is up to about 7 seconds. Cope just absolutely untouchable today.
Oh, indeed, and I think Valentini will have accepted that, given the fact the two of them have been trading lap times, to be fair, both of them battling in terms of lap times. 31.0 for Cope last time around, 31.2 for Valentini. But Cope, every time Valentini has shown some means of closing that gap down, Cope has responded. He has managed that gap absolutely perfect, and I think it really is the case. We saw in qualifying, Cope out-qualified Valentini by 4/10 of a second, and I think that message has carried through into the race here, because it is still the case that Thomas Cope holds the fastest lap with, what is that, 1:30.5. But let's not forget about Adrian Essens here down in P3, the Belgian driver Indy Autosport, who has had a very good race and really has been the best of the rest, wouldn't you say, David?
Yeah, he has. He's had a very quiet race, to be honest. We almost forgot he was here, to be fair, but he's done a very good job. His brother not here today in the Pro-Am category, so he's flying the flag for the team, and a very good run by Jensen Adriansen. I'm just having a look further down the table. Roland Schartner lost 2 positions a couple of laps ago. One to Tom Bingham, who's now in the top 10 of the race in the AM car, and Hoop Kamerl, who's jumped up into the podium positions. The German having a very good run here in the Audi, and yeah, just I don't know what quite happened for Schartner, but he did run wide in one of the corners and lost a couple of positions, and maybe we'll see a replay here. This is Tom Bingham coming up behind him, and does he run wide on the exit as we come towards Warwick Bridge? It looks like, oh, a wobble. That's not the place to have a wobble, is it, Paul?
Oh, most definitely not. Just a little bit of a snap on the car there, and Druid's the worst place to be fair. Shartner got it back under control. He didn't make contact with the wall there, but that's not what you want, particularly in the end of the race. And then you can see Hook Kamel just coming down the inside. Very brave to make the move there. But Shartner right now, I think as a driver, he needs to try and get his head back in there and have the faith in the car. Because something like that, Druids, that disturbs your trust in the car entirely. Because you think to yourself every time you go through that corner, is it going to do that again on me now?
Exactly, and that is the last thing you want to have happen. You need to have complete and total faith in the car, especially at a circuit like this, as they run around here trying to go. We need to go to Lucas Lang here. I'm hearing something happening with him, David.
Yeah, Christophe Herbinot took almost a second out of Lang that time. So you said the gap wasn't going to close. It is going to close, but will Christophe Herbinot just run out of time as he catches the Porsche? They've got 3 minutes left on the clock, so we're probably looking 2 laps at least, depending where Thomas Cope is on the circuit, and 2 purple sectors on this time round for Christophe Herbinot, and the gap's down to below 2 seconds, so the Belgian has not given up on making this 4 Lamborghinis in the top 4.
That would be an impressive run from Christophe Herbinot. Remember, a pit lane start. He is up 23 on the day. We are hearing that it is incredibly close on a extra lap here, so we're going to have to keep an eye on Thomas Cope as he crosses the start-finish line. Lucas Lang, though, able to cross over the gap down to 1.5 as they cross over, seeing what can happen here. Lang running the maximum there, trying to fend off the pressure here, Paul.
Indeed, and the problem now Lang's got is, of course, he's had quite a comfortable run of the race. Has he got enough in the tyres and the car to be able to now up there? Oh, goodness me, Herbinot gets it wrong there coming out of Cascade and pushing it so hard and into the wall there and damaged the rear of the car. My goodness, and that, well, we can see Smart's a long way back, so Herbinot will get himself back up to speed, but my goodness, the Delta Sport driver, they're literally driving it on the ragged edge, and in return, now the edge of the circuit has come back to punish him.
It has, and the 92 is going to have to settle for 5th place here. Let's go back and check out the replay of exactly what happened. We ride on board right now, brings it down through Cascades, just lets the car run a little bit wide and touches that grass, tries to get a little bit better and overcorrects it and backs into the rear there with that Lamborghini. That is certainly going to hurt him. That is not the way you want to have this race go if you are Christophe Herbinot.
No, especially from a pit lane. He's been driving so well, the Belgian, kept his tyres in control throughout the traffic that he had to get through, and then that's the first mistake we've seen from him. But then we said Stuart Winness was going well, and he had a pit lane speeding penalty. We had Herbinot going well. He's gone off. Regan Wetter took pole position. Could he take his first victory? I think as commentators, we might just not want to predict anything.
Yeah, the commentator's curse is very strong with the 3 of us here today. Waiting to see, I do not see Barney waving the white flag, so I believe it is 2 to go at the line here for Christophe Herbinot. Thomas Cope continuing to lead as the clock ticks on down. There is your leader, Thomas Cope. We'll focus on him here until the end as he makes his way down through Knickerbrook. Only 30 seconds remaining in this race. It is going to be very, very close at the line. Sometimes Barney gets his timing a little bit wrong, so we'll have to see there exactly what he does. But the number 64, absolutely dominant out here today. Oh, that's Paul Collishaw having a big incident up ahead of him. He's able to get by, though, is Cope, so going to be a little bit thankful there for that. That was 3rd in the Pro-Am category. Here comes Cope to the line. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go for Thomas Cope.
Yeah, it's really close in the Pro-Am category. Cowdershaw was in the Am category. He gave that position back to David Gill, so just off the podium for Cowdershaw. But in Pro-Am, we actually have Hook Kamel, Shartner and Engelhardt all close together for that final podium position, as we now see, Paul, what happened to the other Paul Cowdershaw.
Indeed, coming through Druid, you can see he takes a little bit of grass on entry, and that just causes him to understeer a little bit there, and he's tried to power through, but then getting on the power, and the car has just said, no, it's understeered onto the grass, and in return, he's tried to get that power down, it's been chucked into the wall there, and, well, he will be thinking about that one for some time, but we come back to live pictures here, and we look at Hook Kamel right now, who's got Shartner right behind him, and also Engelhardt, as you're saying, David, and these 3 all battling for the final step of the Pro-Am podium, and, well, it looks so, the RASR racing driver here looking strong at this moment.
Yeah, and they're going to have another lap to go because Thomas Cope is behind them on circuit. So these three will get another lap to go. So we might be able to pop back to them afterwards as they all get through to under Warwick Bridge. But Thomas Cope will be coming round towards the end of the lap. He's got about a fifth of a lap to go. Here he comes under the same Warwick Bridge. Oh, very wide there by Cope. Don't throw it off now. And Thomas Cope, who's took the ball by the horns here at Oulton Park and absolutely ran away from the field for a dominant victory. I thought he was going to lose it out of the final corner there, but he takes the victory here at Oulton Park.
Thomas Cope, your victor by 6 seconds over Tom Valentini, who is able to cross in behind him. Jensen Adriansen's a long distance behind, about 19 seconds back, will complete this Lamborghini podium here for the pro category as he pilots his way out of Lodge Corner and up over Deerleaf. A great drive for all three drivers. The Lamborghini absolutely dominant here today. Is Paul, we check back in on that battle for P3 in the Pro-Am category.
Indeed, it looks as though Huckamel has made the break, and Shartner, in fact, Shartner now having to worry more about Engelhardt battling. As you can see, a little bit of a weave from side to side there from Engelhardt, trying to get in the head of Shartner as they make their way down in towards his lots, but that's not going to work because as they come through Nickelbrook, it is the case that right now, in fact, Engelhardt's cost himself a bit of momentum. They come charge on through, and I think right now it's Tommy Miljord who's making his way out of the final corner, and well, it's going to be back-to-back victories for the Pro-Am driver in class. He did it at Hockenheim, and as he crosses the line here, he takes the win in the Pro-Am class here in a fantastic start to finish drive, just ahead of Adam Gladden from Vulcan Sim Racing. And then we are going to see the AM winner of Tom Bingham come through here, David.
Yeah, Tom Bingham has driven a perfect race and he's going to be rewarded with a top 10 overall as well in that McLaren, which is a little temperamental at times. Huckamel takes the final podium spot from Shartner and Engelhardt. Good drive there by Engelhardt in the end. Here comes Eden Frisner, who will cross the line second in the AM category, and it will be David Gill who has took third because of the mistake from Paul Cowlishaw near the end. And fifth in the AM category is Patrick Eimer, who we saw winning last time out. So yet again, this championship throws up a curveball even this late in the season.
It sure does. And let's go ahead and bring you through those final results here as we wait for drivers to filter into our interview box. The last couple of drivers crossing over the line right now. It was Thomas Cope that was able to take that overall victory with Tom Valentini behind him and Jensen Adriansen's, as we said, rounding out the pro podiums. Lucas Lang, Christoph Herbino, able to recover from that spin and still be able to hold on to P5 as they ran. Kieran Smart, your biggest mover on the day, up 24. Tim Spesser rounding out the top runners there in the pro category. Tommy Miljord able to take victory in Pro-Am behind Adam Gladden. Tom Bingham, your winner in the AM category with Arthur Hupka-Merle, 11th overall and third in the Pro-Am to round that out. Looking further down, as we said, and Frisna in the AM winner, and then third, David Gill. So some great runs across the board, and we are happy now to be joined by your victor, Thomas Cope. Thomas, dominant doesn't even come close to describing that, but just talk me through that. It looked like you never had to even blink over the course of this race.
Yeah, it's just a lot of practice this week. Able to pump out some really good pace during the race. Valentini can be pretty honest. There's points where he was even catching me because I made a few mistakes. But good race to everyone else, keeping it nice and clean on the start as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was good there for you. And I guess a bit of a personal question. How's the foot? I know you said you had a broken foot last time, out a broken ankle. Any more pain this week or a little bit easier to drive?
It started out all right during the start of the race. It started to come into pain about 40 minutes in, and I'm feeling a bit of it right now, but it's not too bad. I mean, I'm back on recovery, so it's feeling better than it was last week still.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Thomas, and 2 wins on the trot here for you. We head to another similar circuit in the form of Brands Hatch next time out. Is that going to be another one you think you can put down another dominant performance?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, in my opinion, Brands is a little bit of a harder track with the big wide T1. and some really tricky to corners with bumps and everything. So I'm hoping I can bring a good performance and a good result. But obviously, got to focus on this week first on doing a good result here, and it's paid off well.
It has indeed, and 2 victories on the trot, as we said. Is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, same as last week. So family, doctors doing a good job. Charles Michelle, emo owner, and my spotter. He really helped me out during the course of the week and practicing. The whole team for practicing, and just everyone around me as usual, and you guys for the broadcast and the league as well.
Well, we are more than happy to do it. Thomas, congratulations once again on the victory here today.
Thank you.
That was Thomas Cope, your overall winner. And David, we've got a couple of people waiting here. And who do you want to talk to?
We've got our AM category winner, and I think a second in a row as well for Tom Bingham. Tom, you qualified so well, but it was just trying to stay out of trouble for most of that race, wasn't it?
Yeah, I saw the carnage behind me, and I knew that I had to really, really work hard to get a good qualifying to avoid that potential carnage. But I'm just so happy that I avoided it, and then I was able to bring the McLaren home in one piece, just about.
Yeah, you've managed to bring it home in a top 10 overall as well. So how did it feel for you in that battle of the Pro-Ams? Because it was, at times, it was looking like you were just, I think you was, I wouldn't say scared off the road at one point, but somebody took a dive and you went, no, I'm going to go across the chicane instead.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. He stuck his nose down the inside, and I didn't want to risk the championship points over the position, so I figured it was just better to just go for the grass and be safe and just take the time penalty and the 1x as opposed to get a 4x or maybe lose the race. So it was careful consideration.
Depending how much careful consideration you could take in the Pro-Am battle for podium you've been involved in all day long. So next up is Brands Hatch. Similar feeling towards that circuit, or do you think it'll be a bit tougher?
It'll be tougher, I think. I don't know Brands very well. I did have a training session on this track with Danny Lee. So big shout out to him for showing me some stuff around here and helping me refine the setup. So, but if the setup is this good round this track, Brands is fairly similar. So I was surprised at how the McLaren managed to handle the undulations and things, and it wasn't too tail happy, and it didn't have too much understeer. It was made for this car, really.
So 2 wins in a row. We'll see if there's a little bit of confidence there towards Brands. Is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to?
Absolutely to you guys, obviously at Apex. Anybody that's watching the stream, please make sure you like and subscribe to Apex because these guys are awesome. All the performance link guys, Danny Lee, Patrick Eimer, and also my wife for putting up my sim racing habit.
And I'd just like to clear up that we didn't pay Tom for that.
No, absolutely not.
So Tom, we'll see you next week at Brands Hatch.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Well, that was Tom Bingham, your winner there in the AM category. And Paul, I believe you've been able to catch up with Arthur Hoopkamuro, who was able to finish 3rd in the Pro-Ams.
Indeed, as he joins us in the interview room, Arthur, a 3rd place stay in the Pro-Am category and bending the trend, if you will, of Lamborghinis dominating the podium with the Audi R8 LMS. How do you feel your race went today, given the fact it was very back and forth, particularly at the end there, trying to come home on the podium?
Yeah, it was quite difficult, to be honest. Because in the end, like always, I struggled with my front left tire. I a little bit of practice to manage it better, but it didn't turn out well this race. But yeah, I got a little bit of luck at the end of the race because my pace wasn't really competitive to the other guys behind me. But yeah, some mistakes here and there from the other guys, and I managed to stay ahead of them and yeah, pass my team colleague Roland. I think 2 or 3 laps before, or 5 laps before the end. So in the end, pretty good.
Indeed, a solid performance from yourself. And just coming on to that point there with regards to a number of your rivals making mistakes, but you seem to be able to have a mistake-less race for the most part. We know the Audi, a very sensitive car with regards to curbs, but also on medium-speed sweepers. Just take us through from your perspective, managing the Audi around Oulton Park. It must have been a challenge.
Yeah, for some reason I got a pretty stable feeling for the car. I don't struggle, this season at least, I don't struggle much with stability of the car. Of course, curbs are always a little bit hairy, but yeah, I do not really have a struggle with the car. I think some Porsche drivers have more problems with snap-in oversteer, and general oversteering problems. But yeah, for some reason I tend to have no problems here. So that part was okay.
Well, indeed, it showed, because whenever we were watching you make your way around the circuit, it looked very composed. And with today's result, of course, a third place and a lot of momentum as we go into the late stages of this championship. We head to Brands Hatch next week. How are you feeling for the Kentish circuit?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even know if I've driven it before, so I have to practice a little bit prior to the race. Yeah, I don't have much practice, if at all, at the track. I'm looking forward for Interlagos. I know much better, and I don't have to learn the track and the layout there, at least.
Well, as a person who lives very close to Brands Hatch, I would say I'm offended, but I'm sure you're going to love the circuit in a week's time. And we look forward to seeing you head to the British tarmac there. But before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, of course. My wife, of course, which is sometimes watching the races in the living room. And of course, my teammate Roland Schartner, which is doing the second season with me here, and we kind of have fun here. And it's you guys do an awesome job, and thank you for organizing such great races for us.
Well, it's our pleasure to bring it all to you, but at the same time, we do owe it to you guys out on the circuit who bring us all the action, and we just look to bring it to life with you guys. But thank you for those kind words. Indeed, I think your wife in particular will appreciate it, the shout out there, but we look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was my first time here in the interview area, so thank you for that.
No problem.
All right, well, that was Arthur Huckemerl there, and thank you for that interview, Paul. And folks, that's about going to wrap things up for us here on Apex Racing TV. But on behalf of myself, DJ Clark, David Whitehouse, and Paul Walsh, all joining me here in the booth today, as well as Jamie Fluke behind the scenes, we would like to thank you for joining us here at Oulton Park. As we mentioned, next week we come back at Brands Hatch. That is going to be a fantastic race to watch as this championship continues to heat up all the way around. And but that will round us out for today, and until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.